Starting your own practice is hard for many chiropractors. It's riddled with both struggles and successes. But here at the Chiropractic Philanthropist, we make it easy by having chiropreneurs and entrepreneurs share their struggles and lessons learned in life and business so that you don't have to make the same mistakes. And now here's your host, Dr. Ed Osborne.
ChiroThin plug-and-play chiropractic-only weight loss program is adding hundreds of thousands of dollars and nearly unlimited supply of new chiropractic patients to offices all over North America. Yes, it's even approved by Health Canada. You don't have to change your philosophy, learn a new technique, or spend money traveling to seminars. Just take their system, implement it, and experience exactly what you've been looking for: increased cash revenue and more chiropractic patients. For more information or to test ChiroThin in your office, go to chirothin.com and click on the pricing tab.
This is the third chiropractic philanthropist interview that I have done today. So I'm on fire. I know I'm on fire, Dr. Charles. So I'm actually on a roll. So let's start with this. For those who don't know who you are, tell us a little bit about you, okay, to begin, and then I'm going to start guiding you through this process of the Chiropractic Philanthropist podcast.
All right, brother. So for those that don't know me, my name is Charlie Francis. I've been in private practice for 20 years. And the very long, to make it extremely short, was that about 5 years ago, I ended up selling my chiropractic practice. My practice was a wellness-based practice, cash-based practice, corrective practice. We were, I guess, considered high volume, 500 to 800 a week. I don't know where that falls anymore. And I got to a point when I realized I was just a mouse in the wheel. I was just working my ass off. I was talking like lunch talks, weekends, events, makeovers. And my life was, on the outside, seemed great, but it was a shit show inside. I didn't know my wife, didn't know my kids. So I knew that for a while I was supposed to change the game for myself. And so I got to a point when it finally hit the tipping point and I ended up selling it all. I sold my practice, ended up selling it in 3 months, which I didn't expect to happen that soon. I sold my house in 34 days. I moved to the mountains, 3 states away in Virginia, the Blue Ridge Mountains, took a entire year off, and I didn't talk to a single chiropractor. Wow. I just wanted to clear my head, because I was drinking the Kool-Aid with everyone else. I'm not saying the Kool-Aid isn't awesome. It was just that I needed to see it differently. And I didn't want to, I call it like church talk. Everyone talks the same language. And so I just started studying business. I started studying other models. I just invested in myself, got my fitness back. I ended up dropping a significant amount of weight. I started to pour back into my family and put them first. Even though I used to say it, I never did it. And operationally, I didn't do it. I did it, and spiritually, I wanted to. I just was so, how can I say, it was running like for significance, running for other things. I wasn't driven by the right factors. So anyway, long story short, beyond that, I started a nutrition and weight loss practice. And my whole mission and goal was to do chiropractic and weight loss and nutrition and make enough money to live. That was it. That was the dream. And long story short, I opened the doors and we exploded. And then we ended up generating over $1 million in under 10 months. And on top of that, I just did it part-time. I committed to taking a week off for travel a month, and I didn't break that. And we just kept going from there. And then I started helping other chiropractors. News travels fast in our circles. And someone's like, hey, Charlie, can you help me? And help one office, another office, another office. And they said, you should probably coach people to do this. And I said, nah, I don't want to do it. And it didn't go that way. I ended up starting to help doctors, and ergo, I realized we started Integrated Freedom. And part of it was I saw myself in every doctor that called me, because I was them. I saw where they are in practice. A lot of doctors, we lie about the reality of our real life. And that's the crazy part. I know some really powerful chiropractors that struggle in their life. And the mission, we would say, is saving lives, but the mission was really my family. The mission was really myself. And I call it polishing a turd. I just took a turd and polished it and called it a mission. I swear, I mean, that's the honest God truth. And then I really found myself. And quite frankly, there was another thing that came out of the whole blessing of the whole thing was I realized nothing in me was broken. I kept thinking I had to get better, learn another seminar, do something else, grow in a way. And I thought it was something like that. And I realized, you know what? I just had to take the layers of shit off me, excuse my French, so I can just be who I am. And even in my imperfections, I'm great. And then I've been able to help chiropractors do the same, create freedom. But it's really a system. We use nutrition and weight loss as the platform, but we allow doctors to define what their freedom is. They want to work part-time. They want to work around the clock. Do they want to be the controlling doctor still and run everything, or they want to automate it or do some hybrid? And so we've been able to help, like now I think we're up like 17 offices nationwide.
Wow.
Yeah, it's crazy. It's crazy. And everyone's doing amazing on their own way. We've had last year 4 doctors generate over $1 million in the organization, not counting myself. And some of them still do it part-time. I have doctors do part-time generating $500,000 or more a year. And it's not about the money. See, that's what the confusion is. The thing is that it's principle-based, it's healthy, healing from the inside out. It's not compromising your principles, but it's allowing the doctor to be free to do what they were put here to do, whether it's still adjusting, whether it's something else. I don't know. I found that I kept trying to follow the different practice management groups because I felt if I followed the scripts and I did these things in a way, that would get me to where I thought I should be. And the problem is I kept compromising on me to do that. And a lot of them promote that shit. And I was like, you know what? I'm doing me. And I know my moral compass. I know what I do. I know I deliver the goods. And giving doctors that same opportunity that's been my blessing. It's like been the coolest thing to see these docs transform. And so, you know, it's a little bit meandering of like how I started in practice today. And that was just a short 5 years ago. And May 15th will be 5 years since I sold my practice.
Wow.
Yeah. And there's another epic thing that's looking like it's come up in May that I'm going to keep under wraps, but that looks like it's going to be the date. So 5 years and I run my practice virtually. So, and it's very successful.
I want to pull a couple things you said here from this is make enough money to live. Mm-hmm. How many doctors do you meet that's just what it is? It's just like, I can't tell you how many doctors I get on a call with them, like, and they're applying to be part of the laptop lifestyle or whatever it is. And we're having these conversations and they're like, approaching 50 or in their 50s, been practicing 30 years, and they're still in that same place of just trying to make enough money to live. And it's maddening, when I think about it. And so, because like when there's people like yourself who have a solution that can actually really help doctors get that freedom, because that's why we called this podcast today, Freedom to Choose Your Freedom. Mm-hmm. Right. So why don't we go into that? Like, tell us a little bit about the freedom to choose your freedom. How does that even work?
Well, I think the first thing is actually choosing that is actually a choice. Like, it's not just scraping by or making it like you were saying, we run the same circles where people are just so stuck in the dogma and they only can see what they can see. What I mean by that is, I use my own personal example. I never earned $1 million in like almost 20 years of chiropractic care. And that's because I always thought that was my limits. And then all of a sudden, as soon as I realized there was no limits, the limits became whatever it is. And same thing too, where I thought, well, I had to be there every day for the practice work because I have the golden PISA forms and I say it a certain way and it's my practice and my patients will leave me without it. Here's the thing, when I end up selling the practice, I had my chiropractic practice in Charlotte, North Carolina. When we did the transition, I thought, oh my gosh, there's gonna be a mass exodus. 3 people left total out of hundreds of people, and no one even missed me. So I wasn't as important as I thought I was. I just built a good system. I never trusted it. And so it's really about systems, automation, and the deliverable of the goods. And in that creates freedom. So for me, some docs don't like vacations. I like to take vacations. I really do. I like to be able to get up on my schedule. Not that I don't get up early, but no one tells me when to get up. I don't have to run into an office. I'm not dependent on a patient every day to say yes to me. I'm not dependent on insurance. So that's where my freedom comes from. It's like, but the way I like to define freedom is I want to make money, but I want to give it away. And I do that. I want to be able to work hard, and I want to be able to have like chill time. I want to be able to build offices, and like again, it was with Men of Iron. I flew out there and I got to do that, and it was a heart project for me, and it filled me up too. But I didn't need to be there. I wanted to be there, and I got more than I ever could deserve. And so that's how I define freedom. Like the fact is that I don't miss my kids' events. On Monday, my son turned 13. I shut down the day. We went to the beach and we fished all day.
I saw it. I think I saw it.
I mean, dude, like, yeah, but it was so cool. My son's like, I'm like, we're playing hooky. And I brought my little guy. He wanted to come too. He's 7. And my wife was there, and we had a couple of beers, and we celebrated the birth of our baby. We got to watch these 2 young men doing their things, and we got to do what they love to do. And then I came home at night. I did my bunch of my work. We had birthday party, celebration, paintball. I still provided for my family. I still served my purpose, but I didn't cut out my kid stuff, because if I was in practice, my ass would have been at the table. I would have missed my son's stuff, which I did many years. And now we're still building it always back up. So I don't ever want to compromise on that. To me, that opportunity meant everything to me.
Yeah.
For me, that someone else may not give a shit. They may not say like that's what they want to do. So how do you choose your freedom? It starts with first making the choice that you determine it, that no one else determines your freedom. And then for me, financially, like money is part of this world. How do you do it in a way that provides but doesn't compromise on your values? And then list the things that are important to you, and then create a system that supports that, and that is freedom.
And right? I mean, and one of the things too is, if I can add to that, it would be, you know, and I was very closed-minded initially in practice. Maybe that was from a place of ego. And I think a lot of chiros are that way too, and maybe can resonate with that. But the more it's actually, I became more open to the possibility, and then I became more open to possibilities, and things started to actually happen for me. But if there was one thing I would say is, yeah, be more open. Like, so if I've dropped the link actually, so if you're everyone here, if you're listening on the podcast, obviously you cannot see the link, but if you're on Facebook and social media, you'll be able to see the link actually for the registration for, you're going to teach like a pretty healthy webinar. Like, I mean, healthy meaning there's a lot of substance that's going to happen on this webinar, this masterclass on Friday. Friday, 1:30 Eastern Standard,
Eastern
right?
time, yeah, March the 8th.
March the 8th. Okay. So if you're watching on Facebook, you can click on the link and go check it out. If you're actually listening on our podcast today, you head over to The Chiropractic Philanthropist, or you can open the show notes and the link will be right there. So let me ask this, like, why should doctors be open to registering and gathering this information then on Friday?
Well, even just go back to the general thing of being open, because when you're not open, you miss the possibility.
Exactly.
And it doesn't mean that because you're open to something that you have to still do it. And for me, that was the same way. I was very stringent how I used to practice. I was I'm using the word legalistic and wellness, and I don't do this and I don't do that. And some of those things still hold true today, but I never explored other things that fulfilled me. So yeah, so if you're open to it, you can come. I mean, we're going to be talking business. We have Shell Hart. For those people in the chiropractic circles, he used to be the CEO of Maximize Living years ago. But now he used to be a Fortune 500 executive of 2 Fortune 500 companies. He runs a $300 million construction company right now. Wow. Yeah. So when he goes through finances and you're talking about what's going on, you couldn't get it from a better source, and a great human being. And so he's going to go down. And when you break down our numbers, the way we do business, we are ass backwards. Most chiropractors say they're good business people, but you don't have a business if you disappear and it crumbles. Yeah. So take whoever's listening to this, walk out of your office for a week, 2 weeks. And when you come back, are you coming back to a shit show? Or are you coming back to it on the same plane, or is it even better? If it's not the same or better, you don't have a business. You don't. You can call it a business. You have a business license, but you don't have a business. And the fact is, like, we can talk about business. So Shell will go through it and break down the numbers. When you really see how most doctors function, we are horrible businessmen and women. Horrible. And that's why most of us are broke. And that's why we're all stressed. And we're looking for more patients. Most doctors want more patients, save more lives. Most people want more doctors because they're talking about their numbers in equation to money. That is the truth. right? And people want to hear it because like it seems too real to actually look at that and say those things. And I have no problem with serving many people, but most people are burnt out and they want to see more people. I'm like, you can't even handle emotionally the people you have. But you want to see more because it equates to more money and more ego and more self-esteem. So, right? So Shell's gonna come on. I'm sorry, we're going down a bad rabbit hole there, but so Shell's gonna come on and talk about money. And then the other part when you do nutrition is like, we want to make sure it's clinically sound. My wife is a clinical registered dietitian, but she's done so many things, works with emotional overeating. She was a coach for Tony Robbins. She's gonna come on and teach the different aspects of the clinical aspect that we do and those type of things. And where I like to do is I like marketing, communication, making sure you're the ace, and I break that down. And so how we're able to generate leads and new, not just leads, but new patients in your door so you can actually help them without having to work around the clock to screen and market and do all those type of things.
I talked about this on a webinar I taught just recently. And I talked about like, I was really like, I got really good with conversion. Like, you know, we talk about converting patients and, you know, getting them on care, right? Which was ultimately the goal. So, you know, everyone wants new patients, but then they got to convert them. So I got really great at converting patients. And the best moment, it's kind of like when you buy the Porsche, and it's the best moment is like the moment just before they put the key in your hand, right? And then it's like, oh, it's deflating. Well, it was the same thing when I would have all of these people that were coming through and I would close them on these care programs. And the best moment was that moment that they sign the agreement and they pay for their care, for a package of care, right? And then that moment after was like, oh, I have to deliver all this care. I cannot remove myself from this. And that's what, when you speak about and you talk about like that we as doctors, like if we don't really have, I had no business, like, and then I got sick. And then what happened to the business? It crumbled. Yeah. And this is the biggest thing that I think that doctors are going to learn when they show up for this training, is they're going to learn that they don't have an actual business. But more importantly, they're going to learn the tools and the possibility of how they can create that business. I should say maybe even remove themselves from their business and still have a life besides what they're doing inside of their practice.
Yeah, and like Gary Vee said that too, is how to build a side dish. So you don't give up. Yeah, don't give up what you're doing, because like somehow, some way you've made it to this point. Like even when I was in practice and doing that, I made it sure, even as bad as it was and as stressful as it was, I knew how to survive, not thrive, but knew how to survive in that position. So then why give that up? Because the fear of giving that up and going somewhere else is too painful. Just build something aside and then see where it goes. And I tell our docs too, like, well, when I get to this point, I'm going to sell my chiro. When I do this, I'm going to do this. I said, how about this? How about you wait till you get there, see how you feel, and then make a decision. And I'm going to tell you, probably 80+% of them have a vision. They get there and they change their mind because it wasn't what they thought when they got there. And some of them still love the chiro. Some of them want to transition. Some of them want to outsource it. I don't know. It just shifts, man. Build that side dish, become a businesswoman and person, generate great revenue for your family, have integrity. It's all good.
Do you feel that's kind of a gap in you know, I know that we talk about like, well, you know, the chiropracticologists don't teach us business. They don't really teach us how to run a business. They don't really teach us how to market, but I don't know if that's really their job. But do you feel that that's like a major gap in the profession is we are just truly not educated in how to run a business?
You know what I think? And I just saw this happen the other day and I had a reaction, and actually had a visceral reaction when I saw it. I'm helping an office launch and I was in the office. And I'll get back to you, because what happens is most chiropractors love people so much that we want to change the planet. We want to change the world. We want to do it. I'm all for that. But we compromise because we think the money's the issue. So we're willing to give them almost anything to get them started. And I saw it. So I'll give you an example. I was in a room. I did a talk. Someone came in for a nutrition and weight loss consult. And they said, hey, this person, this couple, they're amazing. They run a children's home. They don't have a lot of resources. In fact, we've been taking care of them for free for the last XYZ years. And I said, all right, well, you do it. This is your practice. You do what you want to do. I'll just teach them. And it was a soft launch. There was a discount involved anyway. And it was for everybody across the board. And this gentleman walked up, took $400, put $400 down and paid for the plan. And they were like jaw hit the floor. Like, how could he pay that? He's never been able to pay for anything. Because my values are there and the law of fair exchange, and he's going to get better doing it. But they were so worried about him, willing to give him everything, he wouldn't have gotten the benefit. And so that's where the business side comes in. It's not like business, like it's harsh. It's just a law of fair exchange, but we want to help people so bad. Sometimes we think if we give it to them, they'll finally get it. And sometimes pushing people away in a loving way is the best thing we can do for them. So for me, I thought I just saw that, I just witnessed that. And it was almost every person, oh, this person has this, and we know all their stories. And when they come in and this happened to my house and I don't have rent this month, like, oh, just pay it next month and we'll run it off. And, you know, I'm not saying everyone functions like that, but I'm saying that's where the struggle is. And then we don't have the business knowledge behind it. Like how to look at your numbers and like when you're flying a plane, if you're in a storm, you just look at your metrics, you won't crash. And most chiropractors run their practice by feel. I ask numbers. They don't know where their numbers are at. They don't know what their ROI is at. They don't know what they're spending. They don't know where they're going. Or they have to go, I'll get it for you. I have it somewhere. I'm like, you don't know it.
Yeah.
And that makes it hard to guide it if you don't know the things it takes. But most chiropractors are so stressed out, they're running around the clock that they let those things go because serving the patient comes first, because the heart, and the business side just wanes until there's a crisis or there's no money in the bank account or they're just stressed to pay their employees or they're not paying themselves. I've been there. I literally, everything I'm saying I did. So it's not like a condemnation of things. It's more like looking back at my former self and saying, wow, you know, good job serving people, bad job at serving people.
Well, I mean, and here's the reality is business isn't sexy. It's hard to sell, right? I mean, it's like, it is. It's like, who wants to, like, it's like trying to sell, like, I don't want to sit down with my accountant every year. It's like, you know, but if you want to, you know, selling how to get more new patients or convert people to care, like, I mean, those things seem more sexy, right? To sell, but the reality is you got to get the business has to be the foundation of everything you do in your practice. And I was like speaking to actually someone on like a really high level coach yesterday, and he said something to me the other day too. And I think a lot of chiropractors do this too, is like sell the vision. Because I'm like, well, why is this happening in my business? And he goes, well, you're not selling the vision. So that's one thing that I know that you have done really well in coaching. And I know this from experience too, of having you out here as like part of Men of Iron, is you're really, really good at like helping doctors appreciate business, but also like being able to sell the vision. So what else are they going to learn? So tomorrow when they show up on the training?
Well, when they show up in the training, they're actually going to learn the fundamentals of what I call the kryptonite. Every person has kryptonite. And you can take the most powerful human being and one chunk of kryptonite will bring them down. And so we're going to show the different kryptonite that typically most doctors have. And then it doesn't even have to be with us. Then outsource those places. You know, outsource those things and get people who that's not their kryptonite. That's where you take your own personal superpowers and you bring other superheroes around you. Like with you, with the laptop lifestyle, like I didn't know 99% of the stuff I do online before we connected. And now because of that, that was a kryptonite of mine. And I bring you along and other people you've connected with, and they do these things. So I'm like, I trust them, they're good. And I just get to run in my sweet spot, in my lane. And we're going to talk about the different levels and how can you automate a business, whether it is nutrition, weight loss that we do, or something else that you love to do. I think there'll be a huge learn in that instead of doing it all because we're so afraid of having to pay someone to do something for us. Right. And when you look at the opportunity cost that people lose because they try to do it all themselves, it's staggering. No one equates to the opportunity cost. So like, I think it's foolish if people don't even jump on a laptop lifestyle because there's so much you can get. They may not want to sell an online product, but they can promote something within their own doors and never have a laptop, you know, so to speak. Yeah. That's what same thing with this. You can take these principles and go, hey, I can learn something clinically nutrition. I could glean something from a CEO of two Fortune 500 companies, not CEO, executive, but he runs companies. I mean, the other day he did an $80 million deal. Like the numbers we talk about are so still, it was just an $80 million deal in Melbourne. And then he negotiated, was it $32 million contract at Universal for their water park, for the electrical contract. So things like that, to learn on how someone sits there and really looks at a business and the metrics and how we don't, even if you move 2 degrees closer to that, you will be better for it, and your family will be better because the finances in your home are the same or equally as important as the ones in the business. Right? You take a Tony Robbins. My wife was an executive coach for Tony Robbins for almost 2 years people pay Tony Robbins coaches XYZ dollars. I know what the fees are. And you get a person like my wife doing that, who drove businesses to over $1 million for companies she didn't even know.
Yeah.
So you get to hang on those things.
Yeah. And so, okay, so I'll drop this one more time too, again, for listeners. So head over to thechiropracticphilanthropist.com and you can actually find the registration for the masterclass for tomorrow with Dr. Francis. And we're totally off script today. So you know what I mean though? But this is the conversation that has to happen. You know what I mean? Like,
I agree.
We can go through the typical TCP flow, but the reality of the conversation is doctors need to be better business people. And that's what, I mean, if I could say in one sentence, what they're going to learn is they're just going to become better business people, even if it's incrementally after the training, which I know is going to be in depth.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm going to bring this back to the flow though. So here's what we're going to do. We're going to start wrapping it up with two things. I'm going to ask you two questions.
All
Number one, I'm going to put you in the TCP time machine. Number two is I'm going to ask you for a resource. So number one, TCP time machine, I'm putting you in, I'm sending you back to a younger version of yourself. I'm going to send you back to when you sold your first practice. Can I send you that?
Yeah.
Okay. I'm going to send you back to that time. So you just sold your first practice. You meet your younger self. You have all the knowledge, experience, everything that you have today. What would you say to your younger self?
I didn't think you were going to ask that shit.
I'm stitching it up on you.
You know, I had this conversation with the doctor because they're getting ready to make that jump. And so it's very interesting. The fear that this doctor had was that they were abandoning their patients. Right. And I had that. I had a couple of fears around that because these people are loyal. And I said, I did this. I wrote down a list and I said, out of the 200, 300 patients you see, how many of those are 6 months or more? Okay. And the list got smaller. And then how many of those, would disappear in a second if you didn't see them for free or something like that. And it came down to, there's probably about a handful of loyal patients. And the ones that I took them out to lunch and I explained to them what I had to do for myself. And they were genuinely happy for me because they knew me. The rest of them were, and then they didn't, like I said, they never left. Only 3 out of hundreds left my practice. So it was the concern of leaving them. And I tell myself, don't worry about it. Like, just, you built something and that's a season of your life. And if that's the time to jump, then knowing that it's okay, they'll be okay. And I gave them resources that they can go to. There's other young doctors that are willing to bear that, I'm using the word cross right now, or bear that burden. And that's their season. And so for me, that's what I would tell that younger self, not to be so concerned about feeling like you're letting people down by doing what's in your heart to do next.
Follow the heart.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Get out of the head.
That's the hardest part.
It is. Okay. So resource. So book, audio, podcasts, video, anything at all that you are, like anyone who's listening right now, they're like, Doc, you gotta go do this.
It's gonna sound like a shameless plug, but I mean this with all, no, not for me.
No, I hear it.
No, it's because I know what I had gone through and saw. And the greatest resource I would tell you for what I see is what Men of Iron provides. That's no bullshit. I'm not just saying that in any capacity, because I've done Warrior. I've gone through the Men of Iron, and what that provides to men, in particular, I know there's women on the line too, but just that one of those resources is second to none. Best thing I ever did, best transformation I ever had. And it still provides me resources every day, because the struggle is real. We all struggle. If we don't have something to go back to, and a strong anchors and foundational principles, you do blow in the breeze.
Yep.
And it's not perfect. I mean, I have my days that really suck, but my sucky days are so much better than my previous sucky days. And my great days are so much better than my greater days, So that's what I would tell people. I would say that. I didn't even know you were going to ask that question.
And, I find like Men of Iron, or like the work, let's just call it the work that we do, is it's not unlike with business. It's like, there's the foundation, right? So like practice, there is the foundation, which is your business, right? And in just in general in life, like with Men of Iron and the tools and the work that we do, that's the foundation which keeps me centered. You asked me before we got on this, like, you're like, how you doing? I'm like, dude, my life's been a shit show, but whose life has it, right? But the one thing that keeps me grounded is having, you know, the structure and, you know, in my day and in my life, even in the week. And I know that that's what you're also like. I mean, I got to give you some props and acknowledgement too. Is like when you came out here and you helped coach these men through this experience, it was some of the best coaching I've ever seen. It was top notch.
Thank you.
Yeah, just incredible. Like your coaching skills were off the chart, and that's what you're going to deliver on the masterclass as well. And so no, I want to acknowledge you for that, and I want to, yeah, and absolutely, I want to acknowledge you for being on TCP on the podcast today. These are a little bit different. Again, the 3 hours of TCP today on social media. This is insane. It's like people think I must have nothing else to do. But
well, it's kind of funny you're doing that. So this morning we had a staff member not be in today. So my team called me up. We're double booked at my office in Virginia. I'm in Florida. So I've been on this all day long. That's why I'm dressed in my garb. I'm wearing like no shoes on underneath, you know, so like the newscaster. But I've been on the whole time. So I'm like, oh my gosh. So I ended with a patient and I just like got on this right now.
Oh, it's crazy life. I started at 7 a.m. with my first interview, ran across the city, took the boys into school, came back, jumped on another one, been on calls all day, did a protege training. This is the freedom, the life and the freedom that we choose though, you know? So kind of bringing it back to our freedom to choose your freedom. That's what we choose, right?
Mm-hmm.
So
this is what I'm done with you. I'm gonna hop back on, and then I'm taking my boys out tonight.
Yeah.
And then I'm gonna come back and do something else and handle that. So I get to live in the gaps and like I said, I'm wearing jeans and no shoes on while I'm on here. So but I look professional from the waist up at least.
Yeah, I'm sans pants today, but no.
Yeah, if I wasn't seeing patients at the office, I'd have a ball cap on.
So I'm just going to end or wrap up the podcast with this. So head over to thechiropracticphilanthropist.com. We're going to have a webpage dedicated to our discussion with Dr. Charles today. Hopefully he's going to have a replay. Well, I didn't ask that. So if there is a replay and you're listening to this later on, hopefully it's evergreen or there's a replay and you can connect with him through that webinar or that masterclass. If not, definitely make sure you make it to the live, because the live is always way more impactful if you're there at that moment to get the information. Awesome. Doc,
Thanks for having me. Always, brother. I think I can talk to you forever, man.
Yeah, I know. I appreciate it. I know we both got a jet.
I know I got to roll, brother.
So you've heard the struggles, you've heard the successes, and this episode is done. But there's still so much more to come and so much more to learn. Head on over to thechiropracticphilanthropist.com and sign up for our newsletter, where you'll receive free practice building tips and strategies, including how to market your practice with your very own podcast and so much more. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you next time on The Chiropractic Philanthropist.